Yeah, I'm sure you've noticed I don't sound as though I come from this part of the world. Should we put it like that, yeah? First time I set foot in Oxford, I got on a bus. And there were conductors in those days, and I said, "Sixpenny, please." He said, "What part of Wales are you from?" Actually, this part of Oxfordshire is riddled with ancestors of mine. I choose the word riddled advisedly. They're all over the place. Ramsden, Stonesfield, Buckland, Longworth, and so on. They all contain great-grandparents of mine, believe it or not. So, but nevertheless, I grew up in Wales. I grew up in Wales most of the way up a mountain in a place called Glyn. You may have been to Big Pit. If you haven't been to Big Pit, do go to Big Pit. It's an interesting trip and it costs nothing. It's now part of the National Museum of Wales. And that's where I grew up. And the whole place was as black as the ace of spades. But summer holidays were absolutely idyllic because the other little bit of the mountain you could sort of climb and then go down into the Elysian fields of the Usk Valley and Abergavenny and places like that. Absolutely. Any Welsh people here? Any emigres? No? No, there's German and Irish and... Oh well, just as well. Anyway, the point of this is that I'm going to sing a song that every Welshman knows, and it's got a very easy chorus. Cosher Bailey had an engine, it was always wanting mending, and according to its power it could do 4 miles an hour. Did you ever see, no one ever saw such a funny thing before. All right, now there's a line down the middle. The man with the sort of russet pullover, yeah, you're on this side, okay? And the lady behind you, and the others are on that side, obviously. And then the third line is behind me, more or less. So, did you ever see, there's 50 verses to this. And if you have to sing the whole chorus, you'll be exhausted. So, you know, I'm doing you a favor. Did you ever see, no, I never saw. And the last bit's mine. Okay. Let's start again. Oh, I haven't told you who Cosher Bailey was, have I? No, Cosher Bailey was actually a man called Cosher Bailey, and he was one of the ironmasters. In fact, he was almost 2 of the ironmasters, because he was an amalgam of 2 very famous South Wales ironmasters. The one family is called Cosher, and the other was called Bailey. And I am particularly entitled to sing this, not just because I grew up in Wales, but because his grave was just over the hill from where I lived. So if I wanted to, I could have visited his grave every day of the week, at least in the summer holidays. Cosher Bailey had an engine, it was always wanting mending, and according to its power it could do 4 miles an hour. Did you ever see? No, we never saw such a funny thing before. Cosher bought a second hand. This is this engine. Oh, this engine business is true, actually. He actually bought an engine, and there's a connection with Richard Trevithick of Cornwall. Yeah, but the engine wasn't very good. Cosher. I've forgotten the second verse. And there's only 49 to go. On the night run up from Gower, she did 20 mile an hour. As she whistled through the station, man, she frightened half the nation. Did you ever see? No, we never saw such a funny thing before. Cosher bought a second hand, he painted her so grand. When the driver came to oil her, man, she nearly burst a boiler. Did you ever see? No, we never saw such a funny thing before. Cosher Bailey had an engine and his engine wouldn't go, so he pulled it with a string all the way to Nantiglow. Did you ever see? Did you ever see? No, we never saw such a funny thing before. Yeah, now that's the sort of semi-factual bit. From at this point, the rugby clubs took over. Some of the verses are a bit rude. You can take it, can't you? Yeah, it's past the threshold. Yes, 5 past 9. Okay. Cosher Bailey had a stoker and he was an awful joker. Just to watch the steam rise higher, he passed water on the fire. Did you ever see? Did you ever see? No, we never saw such a funny thing before. Cosher Bailey's sister Millie played soccer for Philly, but when it came to rugger, she was a silly little Billy. Did you ever see? Did you ever see? No, we never. Could the band not slow it down? It's getting late. And his dear old cousin Rupert, he played stand-off for Newport. When they played against the Netley, someone kicked him in the belly. Did you ever see? Did you ever see? No, we never saw such a funny thing before. Thanks, lads. And his dear old Uncle Sidney had a floating kidney, so we put it on a flannel and it floated down the channel. That's the Bristol channel, of course. Did you ever see? Did you ever see? No, we never saw such a funny thing before. His dear old Auntie Anna did play the grand piano. She went rama, rama, rama till the neighbours said, God bless her. Did you ever see? Did you ever see? No, we never saw such a funny thing before. A very seasonal verse this. And his dear old cousin Yanto was playing in a panto. And he wanted to play the fairy, but he couldn't because his legs was fat and hairy. Did you ever see? Did you ever see? No, I never saw such a funny thing before. Now, these are two very special verses because one comes from Robert Graves's very famous autobiography called Goodbye to All That. Goodbye to All That. Robert Graves was a poet, strong connection with Oxford, and he was a commissioned officer in the Royal Welsh Fusiliers. And he said in his autobiography, Goodbye to All That, which has been in print since 1929 and was considered by one of the Sunday papers to be one of the top 100 best non-fiction books in the world. He said, because he was a commissioned officer in the Royal Welsh Fusiliers, he had to learn idiotic Welsh songs. I think the book should be demoted from its current status. Cosher Bailey's cousin Norwich was fond of oatmeal porridge, and to get a bit of knowledge he was sent to Cardiff College. Did you ever see? Did you ever see? No, I never saw such a funny thing before. I think there's someone in the front row who goes to Cardiff College, actually. I can tell it by the way he smiled. So you know this, you can come up and sing it instead of me. Okay. This is a political one. Did you know that I'm not in favour of referendums, or as a graduate of a very venerable university not far from here, perhaps I should say referenda. Not in favour of referenda, but did you know that the first referendum ever held in this country was held in Wales? And it was held every 10 years. And guess what it was about? Have you ever been to Wales, where they brew the finest ales? But if you want a drink on Sunday, you will have to wait till Monday. Did you ever see? Did you ever see? No, we never saw such a funny thing before. There's one verse got Oxford in it for some peculiar reason. Cosher Bailey went to Oxford to pass matriculation, but he saw a pretty barmaid and he never left the station. Did you ever see? Did you ever see? No, I never saw such a funny thing before. Okay, I think we've got to about 34. Get you out of your misery. This is actually the last verse I'm going to sing. Cosher Bailey, he did die, and they put him in a coffin, but alas, they heard a knocking. Cosher Bailey, only joking. Did you ever see? Did you ever